Hi. Our next shorty unit is going to be on the economic functions of all governments. In our first unit, we discussed that there were four elements of a state, and that kind of leads us into what we're going to talk about today. So we know that a state, a country, has to have its boundaries. Here's the United States. It has to have sovereignty. So I'm going to take my yellow marker here and I'm going to try to give the United States a crown to represent sovereignty. Okay. Oops, that's a really sad crown. And then we know that it has to have people. So here come my people. Okay. Oops. Again, really sad people. Nice hair though. And finally, we know that it has to have a government. And Maryland is right about here. Okay. And that represents Washington, D.C. Every government has four purposes. We know that a government is to maintain social order. I'm going to change the color of this so that it's a little bit easier for us to read. Okay, a little bit large too. Maintain social order, provide public goods and services, national security, and finally, make economic decisions. Okay? So that government that we have right here has to do these things. Okay? This is their job. Okay? This is what we're going to study right now. Making economic decisions. I should not try to do this at the same time here. There we go. Making economic decisions is the part that we want to focus on in this next unit. Okay? So with that being said, every government, no matter what type of government we're talking about, autocracies, absolute monarchs, constitutional monarchies, democracies, any type of government, dictatorships, totalitarian, oligarchy, you get the idea. They all have the same 6 functions. They have to do these things, okay? So we're going to go through them, and we're going to have you take a few notes on them, okay? I don't know why we have an extra page there. So the first one is maintain legal and social framework. Now, this probably looks a lot like maintaining social order. And it is, except for this word, okay? Highlight this word, framework, okay? So yes, a government is supposed to maintain a social order, but they have to create a framework in order to do that. So when we're talking about this stuff, we're talking about things like access to justice, okay? So how do they do that? What are some examples of that? Like court systems, so that if you are injured some way, you have the ability to reclaim the damages, okay? Or they create a monetary system. Now, that might not seem like a legal and social framework, but it might not be a legal framework, but it is a social framework. The social framework is the idea that we need that in society. We need money in society to be able to function as a society. Okay. The last one is a term called eminent domain. Okay. And eminent domain is the ability of the government to take land to be used by the government. Okay. So let's take a look at eminent domain. Okay. Eminent domain is, like I said, the power of the government to seize land for the betterment of its citizens. Okay. Now, when would that happen? Well, when the government needs land for ditches, it might take some of your farmland for that. Land for roads, okay? When Highway 60 went in over by Sibley, there was issues of eminent domain. Things like post offices, okay? All of those are examples of eminent domain. Eminent domain right now is being challenged in a lot of courts because some companies, Walmart, believe that they can use the land better, so they're trying to get the government to use eminent domain to seize land for the purposes of industrialization. So far, the courts have ruled in favor of the citizen, but many believe that it won't be long before large companies like Walmart, Google, whatever, can seize a small company, seize the land of a small homeowner or business owner and say, hey, we can use that land better than you can. Okay? Now, providing public goods and services is exactly like the what we talked about in the purposes. Anytime that the government provides public goods and services, public meaning products that are purchased for by the tax dollar, okay? The key word there is tax dollar, okay? So food stamps, NASA, education, national parks and reserves, libraries, snow removal, ugly, ugly word, snow removal. When it is available to all citizens, it is public goods and services. Okay. The third one is to maintain competition. All governments either can encourage or discourage competition between the companies. So for example, in our country, we don't believe in the monopoly. A monopoly is when one company owns all of it. Nobody else has access to it. In the old days, yes, I'm the old woman, but in the old days, the phone company, there was only one phone company. It was AT&T. That was it. In the late 70s, the Supreme Court said that the AT&T had a monopoly on the phone and broke it up. And that's why we have so many different types of phone companies right now. There are worries that much of our media is owned by one company. And is it turning into a monopoly? Microsoft pays a fine because the courts have ruled that it's a monopoly, but it refuses to break up. It has to do with the way it does the Windows. Okay, some countries will forbid small businesses to even exist, and that's the way they maintain competition. They eliminate it. Antitrust laws are those laws that are passed to break up monopolies. Okay, so let's move on to number 4. To redistribute income. To redistribute the income means that all governments have some way of taking the money from one group and giving it to another. Whether they give from the rich to the poor, or from the poor to fund the wealthy in-power class, or they take it all to provide for the leader. This is a huge issue right now in the debate between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. Hillary Clinton is running on the platform of taking from the rich and redistributing it among the people, the middle class and the lower class. Basically, we do that with our tax system right now. We have high tax rates for the wealthy, and the more money you make, the more you pay in taxes. Whereas Donald Trump is encouraging what is called a flat tax. Everybody pays the same amount, 5% on everybody. But if you make $5 million, 5% would bring in $25,000, I think that's right. But 5% on somebody who makes $25,000 would not near be that much. He's saying get rid of all of the loopholes and go to a flat tax. Okay. We redistribute income by using tax dollars to feed the poor. Because the rich tend to pay more in taxes, that's redistributing the income. Medicare, using tax dollars to help medically those who can't. Unemployment, using tax dollars to help those who are jobless. Financial aid, tax dollars to help those who cannot afford a higher education. All of those are examples of redistributing income. Number 5, correcting externalities, which is just a fancy way of saying correcting problems. Sometimes the government has to step in and fix problems that might exist in the marketplace. This could include labor disputes, dangerous products, or protecting the environment. So, for example, to fine a company for illegal air emissions, to recall tomatoes because they've been sprayed with deadly pesticides, awarding less privileged children grants so that, not loans, grants, so that they might fund education that might be impossible. We're seeing this right now with the Samsung 7. Samsung was supposed to handle its recall differently than it did, and so the government stepped in and said, Samsung, if you do not take back that Samsung 7 Note, we are going to do that for you, and it'll be a forcible recall. A lot of the recalls that are done now, presently, are voluntary. The final economic system, or the final economic function, is stabilizing the economy. The government is the largest employer and the purchaser of products. Therefore, what it does as a business can have great ramifications, which is kind of like the ripple effect. And sometimes the government needs to curb inflation, which means people are spending too much, or sometimes they need to slow it and encourage purchases. I want you to stop and think of all the businesses, of all the buildings that need toilet paper in government buildings. So literally getting a toilet paper contract can make or break a company, okay? Other ways that they control or stabilize the economy is they raise and lower interest rates. So if interest rates drop, like to buy a house, that will encourage people to buy more houses. If they want people to slow down, they will raise the interest rates. Governments giving tax refunds, which is one of the things that Donald Trump is promising. And that money is supposedly people will turn around and put it back in the economy. Maybe go out and buy a refrigerator, which will help the refrigerator companies. There was, under President Obama, what was called cash for clunkers. If you had a car that had very poor gas mileage and emission problems, you could go in and the government would give you money for your clunker, if you will, and that encouraging you to go out and buy a more efficient car. Down payments. First-time home buyers can use that money to help them purchase a new home. If you flip your paper over, you will notice a worksheet that I want you to complete. Okay? What you're going to do is you're going to look at the headlines that are in the following newspapers and determine which economic function is being covered. So for example, you'll see in number 1 it says federal government approves crime bill, cities to hire additional police. Well, the first part, approving the crime bill, is to maintain social order. They're trying to provide a framework. But it is the additional police that are public goods and services. There are a total of 15. Please have them done when you come to class. Thank you.